ragazzi, my name is Erika and I'm your trusted Italian artist. I am still kidding, you should never ever trust Italians.
First reaction, shock.
So, you defeated the evil blank canvas and managed to have the lines for your drawing. First of all, congratulations. And second of all, it's now time to face your second quest. The coloring. But fear no more, your Italian knight is here to help. Wait, hold on. You're telling me that you don't know how to properly start a digital illustration? Well, you don't have to worry, I have your back. I will attach here in the corner of this video the first video I made of this series with an introduction to the whole illustration process, and you can start from there. Let's go! Are you now caught up? Then let's go, my apprentice. The next step is on to us. So digital coloring is very easy. You just need to know about color theory, about lights and shadows, and about layers, and about grayscale values, studying materials, and know how to render them, know how surfaces reflect on each other,
how the light bounces, and how to adjust the layer, have the texture grade, and then scale everything down, and then you're ready to post it. Isn't it easy?
Okay, let's calm down and let's start with one thing at a time. So there are different methods of coloring in illustration. I will show you mine. Before you start, you might want to do a thumbnail. What is a thumbnail, you might be asking? Well, a thumbnail is a picture that you draw really fast, and it helps you to visualize how your illustration will look like in the end. And also a good way to find out in which direction you want your digital painting to go. Start by collecting a few references of coloring that you like, other artists, realistic picture, interior design, photograph references, like literally everything that inspires you to have an idea and understanding how the light that you want to achieve could look like. And then from there start experimenting in, I suggest more than once. I did only one, but I have also some experience, so I suggest you do more than one try different color combination, try different sketching method, lighting situation, and do a lot of thumbnails that give you an idea of how you want your illustration to go and to look like it in the end. This will help you a lot, especially if you are a beginner. Wait, what? If you subscribe to my channel, you will have way more free tutorials and even tips on how to grow your social media. Holy moly, you should do that now! Click on the button with the bell and turn on the notification to keep up with all the new videos. Do it now! End of the spot. Now back to the tutorial.
3 hours later.
And just like that, the thumbnail is done. Wasn't that super easy? Yeah, don't worry. This was the shortened process, but I will go into detail step by step of all the illustration process right now. Brace for the ride, it might take a while. The first step is color blocking. Color blocking is a technique where you add flat colors in your image to use as a base to draw your objects and paint over them. It will simplify the drawing process because in this way you can select every object in your image and then easily color over them without going outside the border of the object. It's a bit of a slower process at the start, but it will make things easier afterwards, so trust me with this. And if you don't do it, don't tell me I didn't warn you. To do that, create a new layer. Move the layer under the layer with your lines, so this way you will never end up coloring on top of your lines. Your lines will stay intact. Click on the lasso tool and then use it to select the main volumes of your objects. Then select the color that you want and drag it in your selected area. It's a super easy start. Now let's brace for a bit more complicated things. And sorry, I have bad news. In this video I will show you my process, but there are a few things that you really need to study and understand before starting digital coloring. Well. We finally meet again, color theory. My nemesis. Ah, yeah, color theory. Yeah, that's important. That is very important. Color theory is a quite broad topic and it requires actually a whole video dedicated to it, if not even a whole course. I'm trying to keep this video not too long, so maybe look for a course that explains these topics more broadly, but now I will give you a crash course in color theory. So this is a color wheel. The color wheel is the base of all color theory, and it can give you a huge help in choosing colors that will work well in your illustration. Here you can see 6 types of color combinations that are the most commonly used in illustrations. The easiest one is the complementary colors, which are the colors that are at the opposite side of the color wheel. They are called complementary because, yeah, well, they complement each other. Take one of the 3 primary colors. Let's pick red. The complementary color of red is green. In this example, red and green are the complementary because green is the composition of the other 2 primary colors. blue, and yellow. Today I will be using complementary colors in this illustration. In my case, I choose an orangey red and a bluish green that, as you can see, are the opposite sides of the color wheel. This is an example by the amazing artist Aki-Anyway. I don't know how to pronounce her surname, so forgive me about that. Read it on screen. And she used here complementary colors, and she's really good at that. Another super popular color combination that artists use all the time is analogous colors. Those are three colors on the color wheel that are sitting next to each other. Artists like Loish, for example, use it all the time, and wow, she's really good at it. Triadic and split complementary are other common color combinations. Every one of these color combinations gives a different mood to your illustration. As an example, analogous colors can be better for the soft, relaxing mood, while triadic colors work better for vibrant designs. Same as complementary colors. But pay attention. Using the color wheel to pick colors for your design doesn't mean just to select the color straight from it and use it in your artwork. There are other two factors that you should consider when finding the right colors and balance for your illustration: saturation and values. The saturation is basically how much color pigment is in the color you selected. The higher the saturation is, the more your color will look bright and pure, but also less realistic, as you rarely see in real life extremely saturated colors. The values are the amount of white and black in your color. The higher the value is, the closer your color will be to white, while the lower the value, the closer it will be to pure black. Another thing to keep into consideration is that in reality you never see pure white or pure black, so keep that in mind if you're trying to recreate a realistic artwork. Last thing, before jumping on today's illustration, I will also give you a quick note on lights and shadows and how they influence your colors.
I do not have time for you!
Yeah, I know, I'm sorry, but unfortunately knowing the art rules and how reality works and the fundamentals is very important to become a great artist. Okay, so if you are used to observing reality, you probably notice how the color of the shadows are different in different light situations. For example, on a sunny day, the shadows will have a blue hue, while during a sunset they tend to be more purple. This happens because the color of the shadows is heavily influenced by the color of the environment you're in. In the case of the sunny day, for example, the blue color of the sky is reflected on the ground, and it's visible in the areas that are not directly exposed to the sunlight, so the shadows. In an interior with natural or neutral lighting, like in my photo reference, shadows tend to be more saturated, and in this case more warm. This is because the light bounces on surfaces of the same colors and makes the color look more intense. Now that you graduated from the great course of Color Theory University, we can finally start with the actual illustration.
Yay!
Now let's go on with the shadows. The first level I create is a level set to overlay that helps me create warm shadows. I usually add different layers to create the shadows, some warmer, some colder, and some darker, to recreate a more realistic effect. Here I'm using a dark color with the bluish hue. Right, before I forget, I do color the lines of my illustration. In this case, I used a warm dark brown. This is a color that I like for my illustrations because it gives a warmer tone and a warmer mood to the whole thing. Here are a few things to keep in mind while drawing your shadows. There is a difference between soft shadows and hard shadows. The first ones don't have defined edges, and they exist on objects that aren't subject to direct light, like this one, for example. The hard shadows instead have a definite shape and borders, and they are formed by objects hit by the direct light, like in this case. keep in mind about shadows is the ambient occlusion. The name sounds scary, but what it actually means is that you have to think about the areas in your drawing where the light doesn't reach. For example, the shadows will be darker in the corners of a room or in the folding of clothing, as it happens here. Details like this can really help your illustration to stand out. Wow! To add the lights. I add a layer on top of the others and set it to color dodge. Here I'm using a color with a warm hue, as I want to give a warm late afternoon atmosphere. I recommend looking at photo references to check how the light works and how it bounces on surfaces. Here, for example, the light bounces off the floor and reflects on the chair. Science time! This happens when the light hits a reflective surface, in this case the wooden floorboard. The light hits the board and it gets spread in all directions, so it will be visible on the closest objects to the surface. Oh yeah, contrary to popular belief, hair is not completely opaque, but it's partly see-through. So what I'm recreating here is the effect called subsurface scattering. I know, so many scary words. This means that not only the light bounces on the object, but part of it enters the object and it reflects inside the object itself. The result is that the color intensifies and gets more saturated. You might see it better in your skin, like for example when it's hit by the light in this way. It follows exactly the same principle. Here I am exaggerating the subsurface scattering more than it will be in actual reality. That's because I'm stylizing the colors as it is part of my art style. As I said, you always need to know the basic rules to be able to bend reality at your own will. The last layer that I'm adding is another light. It's the rim light. This is an effect that is created when the light is behind or at a specific angle with the objects you are watching. Semda's art and Rostro used it in these two drawings, for example. My light source is white, so in this case my rim light will be almost pure white. The color of the rim light changes depending on the color of the light that you're using. If you're using a green light, then the rim light would be green, and so on. I'm also adding some lighter accents on other parts of the drawing where the light is more intense. Again, at the start it's better to have good reference pictures. It will help you understand how reality actually works. I know that you will hate me for saying this, but you also need to study materials to learn how to render and make them more believable. Even if you're drawing a stylized illustration, knowing how reality works is still super important. Look at this spot, for example. Right, there is also something to add on the color theory crash course. One of the rules of the color theory is that the color is more intense and saturated in the border between lights and shadows. Here I'm bringing it to the extreme as I'm making the stylized illustration, but keep that in mind. It's time to spice up the mood with some adjustment layers.
Oh yeah.
Here I'm adjusting both hues and values of my illustration with color balance and the curves. I want the shadows to be a bit colder while the midtones and lights to be a bit warmer. And I also want the red colors pushing out a little bit. The adjustment layers are a bit tricky to understand at first, how they work and what they modify, but try them out, play with them a bit, see what changes in your illustration, if you feel it more or less. You know, just give it a try, and then with some practice you will get a hang of it. Next I'm creating a new layer. I fill it with a warm pink color and I set it to soft light to warm up the atmosphere and to make it look like it's a late afternoon. But with this layer I don't want to touch the shadows. I want them to stay the cold hue they are now. So what I'm doing, I'm using a mask. Yeah, not that kind of mask. Masks are great to make changes in your illustrations that are not permanent and easily reversible. How do they work? So go on a layer and click on it, then select mask. If you use the color black on the mask, it will make the specific part of the original layer become transparent. This way you won't have to use the eraser tool on any part of the levels, and you can revert your changes at any time by drawing with the color white on the mask. It's really one of my favorite tools, and it's perfect for people with anxiety like me, okay? I have one last trick for you that you can use to give more texture and help the overall look of your illustration. And I'm talking about adding a layer of grain. The goal is to create a roughness that reminds a little bit maybe of a real life canvas. So create a new layer, fill it with a gray color, 50% black, and set the transparency also to 50%. Then go to Adjustments, Noise, and adjust the grain by dragging your pen on the screen left and right. If the grain is too harsh, you can blur it out and make it more natural by going on Adjustment, Gaussian Blur, and then adjust the settings. Et voila! Your drawing has now more texture and depth. Last but not least, before posting a drawing, I do resize it, sizing it down. The reasons are that first, I want to avoid quality loss. In fact, some platforms like Instagram resize your drawings when you post them and use their own resizing method that is really horrible for artists and make your artwork look really bad and really pixely. The second reason is also to avoid art theft, because already in the past I had experience, unfortunately, that people put my drawings onto websites where they sell print and things like that, so this will make it harder to steal my work. So I go to Action, Canvas, and Crop and Resize. Then the dimensions that I choose are usually 1500 pixel by 1500, and DPI resolution definitely 72. And that is because 72 is the maximum resolution the screens allow. Well, I think we are finally done for today. That was definitely long. Holy... Now, comment spaghetti if you reached this part of the video. Let's confuse people that were not good students and did not arrive at this point of the video. Arrivederci belli. I will see you soon in my next video. Hey, psst. If you're interested in this little baby here, it's a Bluetooth speaker that they sent me for free. This is not sponsored. You can find the link in the description box. And the keyboard is mechanic.